Hey class. Okay, so today I'm going to go over the disc sander and belt sander. So you get two tools for the price of one. And here, let me show you what the disc sander looks like. So right there's the disc sander. Now the reason why they call it a disc sander is because the sandpaper is put on a disc. And this is a really good tool to use for sanding your project or any wood. It does a very good job. It does an aggressive job. It's easy to use. In fact, it's probably my students' favorite tool to use. But there are some safety things that you need to be very aware of when you're using it. Let me turn it on and show you how fast it works. But before I turn it on, let's go through our self-safety check. Okay, so I don't have long sleeves. Okay, so I'm wearing safety glasses. I don't have any loose items of clothing or jewelry that would get in the way. I'm the person to turn it on. I'm the person to turn it off. I don't leave the machine until it comes to a dead stop. So it has to come to a complete stop. So with that being said, let me turn it on and show you how fast it spins. Sounds like a jet engine. It spins incredibly fast. So I'm going to turn it off. Now, one of the safety rules is you cannot leave a machine until it comes to a dead stop. Well, if I just leave this spinning, it will take 5-10 minutes for it to come to a complete stop. Now, this is an old machine, and sometimes if it were new, it'd have a button up here, a lever right there that you just push, and it kind of a disc brake, but it broke off a long time ago. So the way that we stop this machine is by a stop block. It's just basically a 2x4 attached to a dowel, and all you do is push it on. And you'll notice that when I stopped the machine, I stopped it on the side without the red line. See the red line on here? The red line means that you're not to use that side of the disc sander. Because what would happen if I use this side, it spins this way, it would pick up my piece of wood and throw it out of my hand. And all the sawdust too would be shooting up in my face, and it wouldn't hold your wood flat. So when you're sanding, you sand on the non-red side, which is the downward motion side of the disc sander. Okay. The other thing that you have to be really mindful of, and this is where most people get in trouble or get hurt on this machine, is you gotta watch where your fingers are. You gotta know exactly where your fingers are. I see people sanding and they lose track of where their knuckles are, and their knuckles go right into the sandpaper and they lose skin and they get hurt. So be very mindful about where your hands are when you're sanding, okay? And then also know that there's a little gap between the tabletop right here and the disc. And this one's about 1/8 of an inch wide, maybe a little less, 1/8 of an inch wide. So you gotta make sure that nothing gets stuck in that gap. If you're sanding a thin piece of wood, see where the wood's going? It goes right between that gap right there. So make sure that you're not sanding a thin piece of wood that will get lost in the gap. Besides, your fingers would be too close to the disc sander anyways. Okay, so watch me do a little bit of sanding on this. I have my safety glasses on. I don't have long sleeves. Everything that's loose is secured. And my technique is I'm gonna be working the whole side of this tabletop, the whole non-red side of the tabletop, going back and forth. Because I don't want to just focus on one area, because what I'll do is I'm creating a lot of friction on the disc sander in one area, and it's going to burn my wood and it's going to wreck the sandpaper. So turn it on, no distractions, and I'm just going to round this corner over. So I'm going back and forth. I'm holding my piece of wood flat against the tabletop. There we go. So I have a nice rounded corner on my piece of wood. If I'm done with the machine, I take my stop block and I stop it. All right, now the next person that can use the machine if you made a lot of mess because there's a lot of sawdust, and clean it up. Just be respectful to the next person. All right, so that's the disc sander. There's a couple things that you don't want to do on the disc sander. Do not sand something that doesn't sit flat on a tabletop. See how this rolls right here? Now, there are times when I have people sanding a round piece of wood, but that's a special application. I add material to it, kind of like this stop block. I add a dowel to it so you can hold the dowel and you can sand it, but your hands are far away from the abrasive material and you have control over it. But if it's just like this, can you imagine what would happen when this disc is spinning super fast and this gets caught, and it'll pull your thumbs or fingers into it because it'll roll into it. So don't do that. And I'll give you an example. So I'm just holding this. See how that just rolls? You know, right there. Okay. The other thing is, make sure you're sanding on the non-red hand side of the tabletop. Okay. Don't sand something so thin that it will get caught and go between the disc and the tabletop. When you turn the machine on, you're the one to turn it off. No distractions. Know where your fingers are at all times. And make sure it comes to a dead stop, usually by using the stop block before you leave the machine. All right, so that's the disc sander. Now this is a two-parter, so I'm going to go over the belt sander as well. So here, let's just go over where the belt sander is. Okay, so there's a belt sander. I got all kinds of belt sanders in the shop. All right, so this belt sander is called a 6-inch wide belt sander because it's 6 inches wide. I have belt sanders that are 4 inches wide. I even have belt sanders that are 2 and 1 inch wide. Usually the 1 inch wide one is vertical. This one lays horizontal. And if I turn it on, the belt moves this way. Moves this way towards you, the camera. So when I'm sanding, I want to make sure that I'm standing kind of perpendicular with the belt. I don't want to be standing right here because when I'm sanding, the material is going this way and I might lose it and it'll hit me and all the sawdust gets into me. And just like the disc sander, know where your fingers are all the time. It's not as aggressive as the disc sander, but it can still sand off some skin or nails, so just be careful. Now, as with all machines, safety's first. Wear your safety glasses, no loose clothing. Like, can you imagine if you had long hair and you're going like this and your hair's right there dangling? So if you have long hair, pull your hair back into a ponytail. And that goes with the disc sander too. So if you have long hair, pull it back into a ponytail so that it doesn't get in the way, it doesn't get caught on anything. So I'm going to turn this on. You can see how it. And I have the belt so that it's tracking right down the middle of the plate that's underneath the belt. So sometimes some of the measurements and some things get bumped or the vibration moves it. And sometimes this belt tends to like drift one way or another. So if it starts drifting this way, the belt's going to run into the machine hardware, and if it drifts this way, then it might come off all the way. So if you see the belt drifting one way or another, turn the machine off and come get me and I'll make some adjustments on it. So the way that you use this is you have to set your wood down at a particular angle. Now let me change the camera angle so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I have this piece of wood that I sanded and the belt moves this way. So when I put the wood down, I want to set it down at this angle first, because if I set it down at this angle, what it's going to do is I'm going to catch this corner, this edge, and flip the wood over on me maybe. So this way it kind of skates off, this way it'll catch the edge and flip it over, just like kind of when I move it, I move the belt, it kind of goes like this and flips it over because it's catching that edge. So anyone that's snowboarded will understand about what it's like to catch an edge on a snowboard. So the same thing can happen. If you put this down the wrong way like this, it's gonna catch it and flip it. So make sure that you angle it so that it's angled at the direction that the belt is moving. So I'll demonstrate several techniques, I'll demonstrate several times what I'm talking about. On a sand surface. So angle like that, and then put it down. Angle like that, put it down. Like that, put it down. So this tip is hitting first, and then you move it around. Now the other thing that you want to make sure is, I don't want to have my fingers, see how my fingers are placed on the piece of wood, below the bottom surface of my piece of wood, because what's going to hit first? My fingers if I do that. So I'm going to position it so my fingers are at the top, and I'm going to hold on to it pretty tight, because I don't want to like grab on the wood and shoot it out. So I'm going to hold on to it tight and just move it around. Okay, you can do the edge around the corners. You can pull it up. Okay, so let me go over some of the safety things about the belt sander. This is a 6-inch belt sander. When you are using it, make sure you're standing perpendicular, like a T, perpendicular with the belt. Because if you're standing right here, it could come off and hit you, and all that sawdust comes up and gets in your face and on your clothes. And when you set the wood down, if you're going to do the surface, make sure that you angle it just right, and then you lay it down, and then you kind of move it around. Make sure your fingers are above the bottom surface, because you don't want your fingers to touch. You grip it tightly, and then you just move around. And that's the belt sander, okay? The other thing is, I forgot to mention, if you see that the belt is moving one way or another, then turn it off and come get me. I'll make some adjustments. And every once in a while, these belts break. So if the belt breaks, it'll just turn the machine off right away, back away from it, and then come get me and I'll replace the belt on it. So that is the belt sander.